There I was in my radiant blue gown, trying to look composed, with sticky underpants and sweat dripping from my nose, as I took my turn strolling down the runway at the 1976 Junior Miss Beauty Pageant. It was the hottest day in August, and we were having a beauty pageant in a high school auditorium with no air conditioning. Perfect conditions for armpit stains and mascara dripping down our cheeks. I was still trying to recover from the horrific embarrassment of my talent performance. I stood on stage for what seemed like an eternity, posed in my pink gingham dress and my huge pink bow, waiting for the opening strains of Tea for Two, so I could dazzle the audience with my perfectly choreographed and overly rehearsed tap number. I waited and waited. The audience and I stared awkwardly at each other, and I started to panic because I knew it looked like I didn't know what I was doing. Suddenly, my dance music screamed through the auditorium at top volume, not at the beginning of my dance, mind you, but in the middle of the song. Are you kidding me? I caught on and kept going, but I was totally mortified. So, as I glued on my fake smile and promenaded down the runway feeling disgusting and shiny from sweat, I started thinking to myself, this is total bullshit. The only reason I prayed to hear them call out my name as the Junior Miss of Lancaster County was to make my mother proud. Entering the local pageants was her idea, not mine. Mother was the preacher's wife in a small town in Pennsylvania, and she was consumed with the image our family portrayed. To her, presentation was everything, as were other people's opinions of us. My mother always made her entrance down the church aisle each Sunday, dressed to the nines for all to see, as she paraded to her seat in the front row. Every Christmas, she'd say, "Okay, Shelley, what shall we do for your Christmas dress this year?" We'd choose a pattern and material and then have the seamstress down the street make me a one-of-a-kind frock so that I could be seen next to Mom in her Christmas finery. I was the obedient Miss Priss, as my mother called me. Little Miss Shelley Vought, who never spoke up or made a fuss, but believed that my worth was based on how beautiful and proper other people thought I was. Little did I realize as a teenager how damaging, self-abandoning, and futile that quest was. But that week at the Junior Miss pageant, I started noticing a voice in my head. That voice started questioning why I was standing there, trying to prove that I was better than every other 16-year-old on that stage. We were all just growing and changing, riddled with self-doubt and each with our own talent. Yet only one of us would be publicly told she was enough when the MC called her name. They never did crown Shelley Vought as Junior Miss for Lancaster County, and I slunk out of there vowing never to enter another stupid pageant again. From then on, I tried to ignore that voice that popped in my head from time to time. That tiny voice of dissent that would seep out at other moments when I didn't agree with Mother's decisions. Like that time she forced me to go to the dermatologist to get pills for a pretty face. I argued with my mother for the first time, telling her that I was fine with how I looked and no one cared if I had acne. But Mom won that battle, and I had to hush that voice again. That voice was dormant for a long time, but it reappeared some years later when I realized my boyfriend Larry had cheated on me. I was so used to keeping her quiet, afraid of what people might think if I ever spoke what I was thinking out loud. But I was older now, and my mother wasn't there to censor me. My feelings were so hurt. I was so tired of his lies. I couldn't keep my thoughts to myself anymore, and I just exploded. This woman's voice that I barely recognized raged out of me. I am done being your doormat. This is over. And I stormed out, fuming and shaking. Who was that woman who had emerged from my insides and told Larry to shove it? I completely scared myself. I was a 32-year-old woman who had always hoped for a husband and children. If I so wanted a relationship and family, then why did I allow this assertive persona of mine to ruin it? What the hell was I doing? It took me several more years to come to terms with this woman who was dying to get out. I was struggling to hold on to little Shelley, remain obedient, and stay on track for the life I was supposed to be living. But this new woman emerged more and more. Let's call her Michelle. This strange part of myself that I didn't recognize, this woman of extraordinary self possession, sporadically and randomly continued to appear throughout my life. Years later, I was engaged to Mark, an actor who ghosted me one summer while he was studying theater in upstate New York. I was devastated, but followed our plan and traveled to North Carolina to perform opera, all the while waiting for a letter from Mark, which never came. Though I was heartbroken at his radio silence, I debated whether I could accept an offer for a full ride scholarship to a master's program in vocal performance in South Carolina. While little Shelley thought it would be inappropriate to make this move without Mark, I heard Michelle shouting, "Yes!" and accepting the offer. It was Michelle that took control, dumped Mark, and headed to South Carolina a few weeks later. It felt great. The more I got away from being the people pleaser Shelley and embraced the independent Michelle, the more I found myself living a full, rich life guided by my own heart. I was able to divorce my husband for his unfaithful and disrespectful choices and have maintained my position as voice professor at a university where he still teaches right down the hall. I threw caution to the wind and started dating women, which felt natural and beautiful to me. I was even married to a woman for several years. Michelle kept showing up and guiding me in new, exciting directions. I guess she had been hiding out in my closet all along. Finally, the preacher's daughter, Shelley, lost all power to hold the door shut, and Michelle busted down that closet door, unable to hold back. From then on, Michelle became the leading lady in all of my life. In my late 40s, I created a one-woman show called Madame Monsieur. It is no coincidence that this show parallels my own evolution of Shelley into Michelle. I start the show dressed as opera diva in gown, baubles, and bangles, performing soprano favorites drawn from opera and musical theater, only to return after intermission in dapper dashing drag to perform the guys. Let me tell you, the way Michelle puts out the show is way different than little Miss Priss Shelley. In my show, I embrace all parts of who I am. This strong, self-assured warrior of a woman, Michelle, has led me through my life, showing up just when I needed her on my adventures. I've been the Cincinnati Pickle Lady, owned my own singing telegram business, performed, lectured, and recorded around the world, survived sarcoma and breast cancer, made it through 2 tough divorces, to be a single mom to my remarkable gay son, Nick, who performs as a drag queen. I am so proud that he can be true to himself and doesn't have to shush the voices in his head, worried what his mother might think. The night my show opened, there were only 6 people in the audience. The second night, 0. Now, 14 years later, I performed full houses nightly, and I now end the show wearing a Wonder Woman costume as I use musical theater and comedy to open minds and empower others. I found my superpower of independence, which was always there once I left my scared, self-doubting, people-pleasing self behind. It took me a long time to figure out how to do things my way. And that's how I plan to do things from now on.
Yeah.
Woo!